kicking off another brand new hour of the program now. Glad to have you here. It's the Steve Gruber Show, and there's a trigger warning at the top of the show lately because the Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm for the future of this country. Thank you for being here. We're kicking off the live broadcast and Real America's Voice, MTN, and reaching a growing global audience. Thank you for taking time to step into the foxhole of freedom. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, an anti-Semitic, anti-American radical from the Ivy League can sue the United States over free speech arguments, says a federal judge in Louisiana. Yeah, Louisiana. That's where the Ivy League is not. Number two, the Milwaukee judge the left was screaming about being innocent after she was arrested has now been relieved of duty by the very liberal Wisconsin Supreme Court for helping an inmate elude arrest. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And number three, 100 days of President Trump has never looked better. I'm seeing more confidence and optimism from Americans than ever before. I attended the president's huge rally in Macomb County, Michigan yesterday. Here's part of what I witnessed. Listen.
All of the things that we've done into our policies, trillions of dollars are now pouring into the United States because of common sense, just common sense. Apple, great company, was building everything in China. Now they just announced that they're spending $500 billion to invest in America, not in China. My friend Jensen from NVIDIA, they're spending, you know what NVIDIA is? They're spending $500 billion. TSMC, the biggest chip maker in the world by far from Taiwan, they're spending $200 billion in the United States. Amazon, $21 billion. Johnson & Johnson, $55 billion. The Mac, $20 billion. Merck, Stellantis, General Motors are putting in billions and billions of dollars, and many other companies.
Yep, that was just a taste of it. We'll have more of that coming up. The rally in Macomb County, a celebration of 100 days. First 100 days of the second term, I should say. He stopped at Selfridge Air Force Base on his way to the event there to announce that F-15s will be coming to that Air National Guard base. Gretchen Whitmer given a chance to speak. She didn't hide this time. She wasn't ready either. We'll talk about that coming up. Now, we talked about this yesterday. A secure border, safer streets, less government waste, a return to American greatness on the global stage. I mean, honestly, we've talked about all of it. What's not to love? One of the benefits of having President Trump back in office is seeing government corruption rooted out for all to see. For the last several years, conservative commentators and just regular folks like myself have felt silenced or shadow banned or deplatformed altogether. We saw some of this come out with the Twitter files, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio just revealed that we were funding a $50 million shadow agency in the State Department that was censoring conservative voices every day. It all started over a decade ago with a program designed to counteract terrorist messaging from groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Doesn't sound too sinister, right? But then after the 2016 election, the program shifted gears and its focus to supposed foreign interference in elections. And the man running the show decided that Donald Trump and his supporters, people like you and more like me, fit the bill. Listen.
By 2020, it had grown into this movement of like actually going after individual American voices. And one of the ways that was being done wasn't just directly, because the guy that was running this thing, Stengel, was actually a guy that was out there saying, you know, Donald Trump talks just like a Russian spy. He talks just like a terrorist. Right. And so do the people around him. But they were also taking money from this program and using it to fund these NGOs, these third-party groups who were supposed to be like impartial.
Yeah, your money to silence me. Anybody like me? Of course, there's nothing quite like me. The State Department used your taxpayer dollars to fund supposed impartial NGOs to go after conservative voices. Yeah, to silence and deplatform people. Here's more.
Those groups were then tagging. They were literally tagging and labeling voices in American politics. Ben Shapiro, the Federalist, others, tagging them as foreign agents. So you look at it and say, American taxpayers, through the State Department, were paying groups to attack Americans and to try to silence the voice of Americans. And there were consequences. These weren't just a label they put on people. Some of these people got deplatformed, they got taken down, they couldn't communicate. So it was outrageous. So Before President Trump took over, they disbanded this unit. They just renamed it and moved it somewhere else. But now, over the last few months, we've worked on it and just taken it down. And to the extent we're spending money now, we are going to spend money on messaging. It's going to be pro-American messaging, and it's going to be incentivizing and protecting free speech, which is threatened in all over the world, including countries that are allies of ours. The best way to counter disinformation, if that's what people are thinking is out there, the best way to counter disinformation is free speech.
And yes, you're damn right. That's exactly what I voted for. For corruption like this to be rooted out, named and shamed and booted out. Like Secretary Rubio says, free speech is under attack. We've known that for a long time. We've seen the European Union completely throw free speech out the window, cracking down on anyone who posts anything deemed offensive. That's right, social media posts will get you thrown in jail, sometimes for months at a time in the UK and elsewhere in Europe. Even during this last election cycle, the EU threatened Elon Musk with penalties after he hosted an X discussion with President Donald Trump. How could the European Union possibly meddle in a discussion between two non-EU citizens discussing non-EU American politics? This, my friends, is why it's so important that America remain the shining beacon, the city on the hill for free speech, now and forever. I'm telling you, the First Amendment is the envy of the world. But had an establishment candidate, or Kamala Harris, won the election last year, we would have continued down the same path to a dark place where you would be silenced, I would be marginalized, no free speech, not in any true sense of the word. We would have never known that our tax dollars were being used to break down our fundamental rights. Secretary Rubio says he's doing more than just outing the program. He's documenting the abuses that took place so that it hopefully never happens again. Here it is.
Yeah, so I think what we have to do now, and Darren will be big involved in that as well, is sort of document what happened. Because one thing is to say it in a broadcast like this, another thing is to actually put it on paper. And there's two reasons to do it. The first is because I think people who were harmed deserve to know that and be able to prove that they were harmed. And then the other is to make sure it never happens again, right? So that 10 years from now, when someone has a brilliant idea like this again, not brilliant idea like this again, you can point to that and say, oh, this was done once before, and here's a reason why we don't. That's why accountability is important in these things, because it doesn't just provide justice, but it also prevents it from happening in the future. You have something you can point to at the same time and say, these are the kinds of things we want to stay away from.
Yeah. From every direction. Rubio also says the administration will continue to fight for free speech as a core democratic value abroad. We have to do that. We have to plant the free speech flag wherever we go. Now, we're going to get to that after the break. But I want this just to kind of marinate for a moment. I'm going to get some more 1775 coffee. You do the same. Let that marinate. Think about the money spent to silence me, to make sure I'm not heard. Something very wrong with that, isn't there? Welcome to it. Glad you're on board. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back at it, defending the free speech principles of America. Defending the principles of the Constitution of the United States. That's what we have done for almost 250 years until very recently, when it seems that too many people are too willing to give up our constitutional protections for nothing in return. Here's more. Listen.
And so I think we raised that. We've raised that. I mean, I can tell you we were at an Oval Office meeting with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and this issue came up. So this has been raised. It becomes part of our diplomatic situation that we raise when we interact with foreign interlocutors. I think what's troubling is we understand, like, that's always going to be an issue when certain countries around the world, but when you're dealing with Western European allies, and that's who you're talking to about this stuff, it really tells you how far it's gone and how big a problem it is. So that's a new thing for us to have to raise in those capitals, but we do it, and we do it everywhere. And I personally witnessed the president and the vice president raise it with multiple foreign leaders. And I think you're going to continue to see an emphasis on that in our diplomacy and what we talk about.
I think you have to. Even here in America, where the First Amendment is still enshrined in the Constitution, of course, and as I say, is the envy of the world. Everybody wants a First Amendment to speak freely without fear of being dragged out by the police in the middle of the night, or worse. We have the loudest voices often lying straight to our faces here. Free speech has not always been true speech. We saw that during COVID-19 for sure, when our leaders and mainstream media continually lied and covered up the lab leak theory. We're going to get to that very soon, by the way. We're going to dig into that. But we saw another cover-up just last year as the media and the White House, the Biden White House, told us over and over again, don't believe your lying eyes. When it came to Joe Biden's obvious cognitive declines, don't believe that. That is until the presidential debate June 27th, when the curtains came crashing down and all was revealed and America realized how bad it was and how much they had been lied to. Of course, if you were listening to me, you already knew that. We talked about it extensively, but the mainstream media just now acknowledging the error of their ways, or at least some of it. I repeat this from Axios' reporter Alex Thompson, who began to admit what an awful job the media did. Listen.
President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception. But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story, and some people trust us less because of it. We bear some responsibility for faith in the media being at such lows. I say this because acknowledging errors builds trust, and being defensive about them further erodes it. We should have done better.
Those weren't truth tellers in the room, and those weren't errors. Those are deceitful people who lied, Alex. You started to go the right direction, but you fell woefully short. An inadequate response, but thank God you started. Like Thompson just did, but the egg on the face is so obvious that at least they're admitting that much, right? A little bit. The fact of the matter is that the eyes of many Americans, trust in the media will never return. It's shattered forever. COVID, Joe Biden, a host of other issues that they just lie about. They've called us the conspiracy theorists for pointing out the blatantly obvious. Joe Biden is not fit to be president. Oh, you must be a conspiracy theorist, right-winger. Well, I must be. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt doesn't forgive or forget either. Listen to her response to Thompson's apology.
I do agree with that assessment from Alex Thompson, who I understand won an award for writing a story months and perhaps years after the American people already knew that story to be true. Millions of Americans watched our mentally incompetent president struggle with his day-to-day duties of this office. We watched our country be ran into the ground as a result, and nobody in the media wanted to write about that, talk about it. There were many reporters, I will say, right-leaning reporters who did talk about that, who didn't get awards, didn't get coverage. In fact, they were lambasted for their coverage. And I remember being on President Trump's campaign, talking about Joe Biden's clear mental incompetence and being accused by people in this room of manufacturing deep fake videos, trying to persuade the public into not believing what they saw with their own eyes for many years. And I think it's about time the legacy media finally admits that was one of the greatest cover-ups and scandals that ever took place in American history, and certainly it did contribute to the decline in the trust that Americans have for the legacy media.
Absolutely
Here, which,
true.
by the way, is why we've made...
They destroyed their own credibility and integrity, destroyed it themselves. Their reputation's gone. And those are the kinds of changes I'd like to see. And like she says, it's long overdue, especially when you have guys like Chuck Todd, who still deny that people like him bear any responsibility. He was one of the worst. Listen to this clown.
This is not a media failure. This is a failure of the Democratic Party. And I just sort of the virtue signaling that some people have done to try to say that the media missed this story. They didn't miss this story.
Oh, good.
David Ignatius wrote, I just refuse to accept this this stupid premise because it's a right-wing, manufactured right-wing premise in order to stain the media. The media's got plenty of things to attack them for, and there are MSNBC and CNN and pundits that absolutely carried water for Joe Biden, but they're not journalists. They're former strategists that carried water for Joe Biden. This is an attempt by some to virtue signal, and it's this horrible sort of pitting different news organizations against each other, when ultimately the people at fault are Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Jill Biden, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris.
No. The people to blame are you, Chuck Todd, and people like you, who are too damn obtuse to admit it when you got caught lying and lying and lying. Journalists? What journalists? You, Chuck Todd? Yeah, we're going to fix this thing. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I'll be right back.